morning, and welcome to Workforce Observer, the podcast where we go beyond the headlines to discover the real forces reshaping work, talent, technology, and the business of staffing. Today, I'm joined by Stephen Dwyer, President and CEO of the American Staffing Association. As Chief Legal Officer, President, and now CEO, Stephen brings a rare blend of policy expertise, regulatory insight, and industry leadership to the position. He's had a front row seat to the forces transforming staffing and a hand in shaping them. We will be diving into all of that today: what's changing, what's at stake, and what it all means for the future of work. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. How are you today?
I'm very good. It's great to have you on our podcast. And I know that you have taken over at a pivotal moment. What's one assumption about the staffing industry you think is completely wrong right now?
You're absolutely right. I agree 110%. What a time for the
Well done.
industry, right?
Yeah.
Tremendous change, tremendous opportunity, tremendous disruption, to use the term of the day. I think there are a lot of assumptions that may not be true. And so bear with me as I kind of tick off a few, I think. One is that skills-based hiring has really taken root, and that is the predominant way in the industry. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that is the case at all.
I see.
And when I refer to skills-based hiring, I think most people know about it, but at its root core, it is looking at the skills, looking at the experience and the person's ability to do the job, learn on the job, as opposed to, for example, look at where they went to university. And I think that our industry has a ways to go before we fully get there. I think a lot of companies say we're going to do it, but I don't think as many are doing it as one might assume. I also think that in the age of AI and particularly volume, we get so many staffing agencies, great volumes of candidates and resumes, that it's easy to look at pedigrees as opposed to skills when you're just looking at a resume because of the nature of time and volume. We got to get through these really quickly, so we're going to find, the right people, and the right people are not necessarily the ones with the skills, but the ones with the pedigree.
Oh, wow. So this whole talk that's been going on, and you're absolutely right. Everyone's talking about, oh, it's all about skills-based hiring. You're saying it has, if I understand you correctly, it's going to take some time before that actually happens in reality.
I think it's going to take some time. And
Okay.
someone said recently to me, Subhadra, and she was very wise, change management takes time and intention.
Right.
And I don't think there's a lack of intention. I
Right.
think it just has not been enough, there hasn't been enough time to allow for that change management to get to where it needs to be for skills-based hiring.
So are candidates getting a mixed message then? Or really, what, I mean, just from the talent perspective, because you keep hearing about skills-based hiring, right? So what is the talent, I mean, how they reacting or rather responding?
I'll answer that in two ways. I think candidates are getting a mixed message, yes. But I also think candidates are also sending mixed messages to staffing agencies. So let me explain. I think that candidates are getting mixed messages because, on the one hand, some firms will say we do skills-based hiring, but on the other hand, their AI, their systems are looking for buzzwords in resumes when they're screening resumes. And a candidate might naturally ask, well, how much are you really interested in and scrutinizing my skills if at a surface level you're using buzzwords or certain terminology to screen me out or in? So I do think there's some, mixed messages. But on the other hand, to be fair, I think, and this doesn't go with skills-based hiring, but I think candidates themselves, particularly certain demographics, are sending mixed messages to staffing agencies. What do I mean by that? They want a lot of communication. They like technology, but only in certain respects. They like text messages and quickly staffing firms getting back to them, but they feel disoriented if they are being screened by not a human, right? But by technology, or talking to an avatar, or talking to AI. So there's
Agent, yeah.
this comfort level and discomfort all at once. And so we've
Yeah.
got a lot going on in our industry right now.
Yeah, that is true. You know, this whole thing about AI, people say it completely, I mean, it's the end of staffing. AI is disintermediating it. But others say no, 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 it makes good firms more valuable. So which side do you think is underestimating the future?
I think I'm going to give you a lawyer's answer because I used to be a lawyer. I think it's both.
I know.
I think it's both. I really do. I think you could argue with merit both sides of the equation. So let's take disintermediates staffing. Will some jobs be dramatically impacted? I think that's a pretty sound hypothesis theory, right? Will Meaning, will clients be able to do some jobs easier with AI and not hire as many people? Yes, I think that's a sound theory. How many? I don't know. We don't know yet.
Right.
Anyone who tells you with absolute certainty, I mean, I don't think they know. Now, and I think that's borne out because you look at the so-called experts, and you can find experts everywhere along the continuum that the jobs market is going to be wrecked. There are people who firmly believe in that. Then there are people who say, well, yeah, but there will be new jobs. And then there are
Yeah.
people who say, we think this is a lot of hype because we don't see it. We don't
Right.
see all of this. I don't know where that's going to be. I think it's somewhere in the middle, like most things, but who knows? I could be completely wrong. Do I think it's disintermediate staffing? Easy for me to say yes. Do I think it presents opportunity? Absolutely. For example, and I've talked a lot about this with our members' CEOs. Staffing firms are sitting on a wealth of data by virtue of their experience with clients. I think, and some of our leading and largest companies are saying this quite publicly, that there is absolute tremendous opportunity to use AI to mine that data, to craft it in a way so it's more helpful to clients. The staffing agencies that will be very successful in the future will not be reactionary, but rather proactive to use that data to help the client predict their workforce
Force
needs
needs.
and implement their strategy. There are probably many other uses for AI and staffing that will become abundantly clear as we continue to move down this continuum in the next year or two. I think it's short that I don't know about right now, and smarter people than I will discover them. So I think there's abundant opportunity. I'm a big believer that AI is transformative, and we're smart as a species, and we will transform for the better with new opportunities. I'm very optimistic, actually.
Well, also, if you go back and look at the staffing industry history, trajectory, right from Chimes to job boards, to the VMS, I mean, there's always been talk of, oh, it's over, it's over. But, the industry kind of just expanded, changed, to grow.
Yes,
So yeah,
yes.
that's
We
great.
just have to be open to not doing things the same way, being creative. And I don't want to sound Pollyannish, Subhadra, but I truly believe this. Our industry is limited by no longer technology. Technology's pretty much made so much possible. We're limited by our imagination and creativity. And so we will be able to pivot. No question in my mind.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
So where is the staffing industry still behaving like it's, 2015? And what's the cost of that?
I think in some ways the industry has been historically and even currently slow adopters with technology in particular. And
Right.
I think a lot of firms out there still have not made a commitment to this transformative technology that we're talking about. And if they have, I think that they have done it this much, meaning to think about how they could increase efficiencies, which they should be, nothing wrong with that, but not thinking more broadly about broader strategy that we just talked about over the next several years. So I think there's some that are still stuck in this, I'm afraid of technology, I'm not adopting it quickly enough mentality. Beyond that, how are we 2015 still treating ourselves as a commodity? As we've gone down as an economy the last several years, we have companies that are accepting any and all business, compressing margins, etc. The same story that we've seen for years, and rather than being selective in terms of the type of clients and work that they accept, and that hurts the industry. We all know that.
Right,
The
right,
last thing is that I think that during terms of prosperity, which we had not too long ago,
right.
some firms, and I'm overgeneralizing, but some firms do not take that time of prosperity to double down on sales 101 or 201 or 301. I've had many CEOs tell me after the times of prosperity, we forgot how to sell. The job orders were just coming in so easily that we neglected to really continue to train our people and invest in them and how to do their jobs. And so I think the next time is prosperity, and I think the next time is coming. We're starting to see some good things. We just have to remember we got to continue to train and remember that it's cyclical. It'll go up and down again.
Okay. I mean, from your vantage point and ASA's, obviously, where are clients, talent, and agencies kind of out of sync right now? That point where instead of working together, there's sort of everyone's doing their own thing, I think. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think you just put your finger on it. I think where they're out of sync is communication or lack thereof, lack of effective communication. Again, as I taking the pulse of our members, I'm hearing that it used to be, and I don't think this is new. I'm not suggesting this is new. I think it's a sustained phenomenon that clients, the days of extended client communication with staffing firms, I don't want to say are over, but it's not as common as it used to be. I had one CEO and one executive recently tell me clients just want to communicate quickly via text. They're under pressure, they're under demand as well, their time, their resources, and therefore there's not an inclination to communicate with the staffing agency as much and as in depth as previously. And as a result of that, you can imagine that it makes it much harder for the staffing agency to do its job and act as one, a consultant, and two, an entity that makes the best match. It's very hard if the client just doesn't have the time or inclination to communicate. I
So, is
think,
it fair to say the client is not engaging?
yeah, I think that's fair. Again, this is a generalization, and I'm not
Sure,
saying
sure.
it's in all cases, but I do think it's enough to say that it's a trend. I think that one of the things that we used to see data is that staffing agencies were getting low marks from clients because they were not communicating enough during the
Right.
term of an assignment, right?
I remember that. Yes, yes.
Clients would complain. I got the placement from the staffing agency and I never heard from them again. Well, now it's the staffing agencies are trying to do that, and they really are, but the clients not being as receptive to that communication as perhaps they might have otherwise been.
Is it
So
because they have more choices?
I think they're busier. I think they're under pressure. I think, once again, the economy is not doing well. So they're facing the same challenges that the staffing agencies are, lack of resources, lack of time, tremendous pressure to do more with less and drive revenue. And so communication can suffer as a result of that.
Fair.
I also think communication is an issue with candidates, like I just mentioned, right? Um, how they want to be communicated with and how often they want to be communicated with. And again, that can vary based on demographic, and that's challenging as well. And then the last thing is, again, based on demographic, some demographics of candidates want different jobs and have jumped around and have had multiple jobs in a particular 1 year or 2 years. and others have had longer tenures with jobs. So it's just a different atmosphere that we're working with, or to use your terminology, ecosystem. It's just very different now than
Yeah.
even several years ago.
Yeah, I can see that. What's your, as CEO, the hardest trade-off you are making right now? Because you have to worry about advocacy, you have innovation, then you have, of course, member expectations.
There is no trade off. There cannot be a trade off between the three things that you just named: advocacy, innovation, and member expectations. Our goal, unabashedly and being forthright, is to become indispensable to every staffing firm in the industry. Indispensable. That's a pretty high bar. How do we do that? Well, very clear to everyone on staff here is to what's our why to be indispensable, to drive, be the fuel every staffing firm's growth. Okay, growth, growth, growth. And so, how do we do that? We do it through advocacy. Members cannot grow if harmful legislation is introduced that restricts their ability to place people in jobs or act as a consultant to clients. They just can't grow if they're encumbered by burdensome regulations. That's been the focal point of ASA all along, and it will always be the focal point. But innovation, the organizations that aren't innovating, and we just talked about it in connection with AI, are not only standing still, they're falling behind. So we have to be innovating. How do we innovate? Well, it's not by what Stephen Dwyer thinks. Stephen Dwyer is not that smart. It's what our staffing companies are telling us. What are their expectations? What are their needs? We can't and shouldn't guess at that because we won't be indispensable if we guess. We need to be really good listeners, and we need to be innovative to figure out, as a trade association, what should we be involved in? We're not going to jump in and do everything. We need to be selective so that whatever we do, our members get the most bang for that buck, that whatever we're doing has the most impact for them. So, the short answer to your question is we can't sacrifice any of those. It's essential to trying to achieve or getting as close to our goal of being indispensable and fueling member growth as we can.
So I guess if I had to parse that, I would say everybody's looking for growth and different ways, of course, because they're all on in different positions on the spectrum, right? Some are more innovative, some are less, but everybody wants to grow. Nobody obviously wants to fall behind. So how can you, ASA, as an organization, help these members along?
Where can we help the members along? And so you just hit on something very astute, that Subhadra, that obviously what a $5 million company in revenue needs to grow is very different from a $1 billion company or a 500 million or a
Yeah.
25 million. And therefore, what we're doing at ASA is taking a very data intensive look at what those different revenue sizes and industry sector staffing agencies are utilizing in terms of member benefits. And then we are speaking to them constantly, much, much more. I'm doing a listening tour. I keep referring to conversation I've had with executives. I'm doing a listening tour every week. I'm meeting with executives. Why? So we can serve them better.
I understand. It's like learning from what they need at different points in time. So, where will the next billion-dollar staffing firm come from? What will they do differently from today? Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, if I knew, I'd be hard at work starting it up right now, or I don't know. But but I
Sure.
said I'm not that smart. I mean it. But I have an opinion. I have a guess. Let's say an educated guess. I think that they will specialize and not be generalists. They will really when I say specialize, focus on one sector, and perhaps even more specialized than one sector. Not all types of employees for that sector, but specialized employees for that sector. Hard to find skills experts who work well and certainly have knowledge of AI, but can complement AI. That's one. Some will be doing, and everybody seems to be talking about this, outcome-based contracts, whether you call it solutions or projects or whatever. That seems to be where at least the conventional wisdom is that the industry is headed right now. And then I think the other criteria is, and this goes along with my first point, I think, with a specific vertical and perhaps even more narrowly a specific type of employee, when they focus on that, developing a loyalty, a following among those types of employees, such that they aren't churning through their employees, their contract workers, but rather have developed such loyalty that they have a stable bench, if you will, whatever you want to call it, of employees who continue to work with them, and therefore know their clients better. I think those are the fundamentals. Beyond that, I don't know, but I think that's a pretty good guess.
So let me kind of amend the next thing I want to ask you actually. So, what will quietly disappear in staffing then? Because we'll have people, the ones who'll be successful, what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing this from a few people, that specialized, hard to find roles, and then, of course, contracts, outcome based consulting. But what will not be there anymore that is there today?
Some roles will be affected, as we talked about, right? So, and we're already seeing it. And it really, we see it with white collar workers. We see it with certain healthcare workers, not necessarily physicians or physicians' assistants, but radiologists, things that could be and are being more automated. So, what's going to quietly disappear, and maybe not so quietly, is the types of jobs and perhaps the breadth of the scope of our industry, whom we serve, and what types of jobs we fill. I think generalists will have a difficult time because of the maybe shrinking or the transformation of the industry. I think generalists, as I say, will have a hard time. There is a question, and I don't know, but there is a question of what will happen with MSPs and VMSs. We already see hospitals saying we can do this in-house with AI and control our spend and look at how we spend. Where will that segment of the industry go? Because that's all part, again, using your term ecosystem, that's part of it as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
sure, sure.
I think there's room for opportunity for staffing agencies to do. We're focused right now, and rightly so, on the client community, not to the exclusion of talent, of candidates, not to the exclusion, but everybody seems to be talking about the clients. I think there's still some much greater room for improvement in working with our talent, our workers. And I think the ones that do that really commit to it, figure out how they want to be communicated with, what skills they are going to need in this next frontier. They're going to get ahead, and the ones that don't, will quietly disappear. So I think that's an essential part of the equation that perhaps doesn't get as much attention these days as everyone is focused on AI and the clients.
Your goals, short term and long term. I had just one goal, that's fine for short term, one for long term.
I think that what my short term goal and long term, but really short term, is for our association to not be reactionary, but rather be proactive. And, you've asked Subhadra very good, thought provoking questions that no one necessarily can have 100% the answer to.
Yeah, yeah,
But
sure.
I do think ASA's role in being proactive is to give deep thought to the questions such as the ones you asked. Give an opinion, an informed opinion. We could be wrong, but leading by giving this information, providing this information, and allowing our members to take it and do with it what they will. Somebody could be watching this right now and say, that guy Dwyer is way off base. And you know what? That's fine. And that's great. I mean, in one sense, we as an ASA, as an association, now we're leading the conversation, and somebody could say Dwyer's off base, and now we've fulfilled our role. They've ruled out what we're saying, and they're going to do what they think is right for them. But we've teed up the issue. And that's what I mean by being a leader and indispensable to the industry. That's what an association's role is, I think. And of course, to advocate for the industry. As we go through these challenges, there are going to be business obstacles, there will be legal obstacles, there will be client objections. We, as the protector of the industry, the defender of the industry, have to protect against all three. Okay, business challenges, how are we going to jump in and help our members? Legal, legislative, we will always be there. Technological, we got to be there as well. So again, that's short term and long term. And the more we focus on that, keep our eye on that ball, it's all about driving that growth, fueling the growth for our members. Because here's an important thing for everybody to know, that every single person at this association believes so wholeheartedly in this industry, in the mission of the industry, of fulfilling people's lives. I mean, we've all talked about it, right? We talked about technology and all of that, but when you come down to it, we're helping people realize their dreams and change their lives and all the things we know. So every person here recognizes how important that is. Company too big to fail. There's a book, Too Big to Fail. This is too important to fail. Too important to us to fail. Too important to me, but too important to everybody at ASA to fail. Take it very seriously.
Yeah, it is. I think people have referred to it as providing a job to someone is a very noble endeavor, right? So, and
Absolutely.
yeah, no, no.
It really is. So,
Thank you
um,
so much, Stephen. Thank you. Really, really appreciate your time.
oh, it's my pleasure, Supadra. Thank you. And I'd love to do it again, but I really appreciate it. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.